before we do that, can you just try opening up your chat box, because we will be using the chat box during this demonstration in case you have questions or comments. So if you can open up your chat box and just let me know how, indicate to me how familiar you are with the Vietnamese culture from 1 to 5. 1 being not very familiar and 5 being very familiar. Wow, okay, Rhonda, Sandra, Sue, a lot of ones, so I'm very glad you're here. Christina, Kronia, 2, Jen, 1, okay. Wow, Michelle, 4. So maybe you can even help me with this presentation. Give some examples even. All right, so a lot of 1s and 2s. I'm very excited. So my goal is to teach you at least one new thing in this class. And so if you're able to learn one thing, I'm very happy. And I think Nicole, you were a Michelle, you were a 4. So if you have anything you'd like to share during this demonstration too, I'll be very happy. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to type it in the chat at any time. You can also unmute yourself and ask me too if you want. Again, this will be live and streamed through YouTube. If you have any friends you'd like to invite to join us through YouTube at this time, you can also do that. So to tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Kim Dang. That is my full first name in Vietnamese. I was born in Vietnam, and I was raised here in America ever since I was 5 years old. So in the beginning, I was also a 2 or 3 in how much I knew about the Vietnamese culture. But because about 10 years ago, I wanted to learn more about the Vietnamese culture to be able to relate more to my relatives in Vietnam who I've never met, and even relate better to my parents, I decided to learn more about the Vietnamese culture. And about 2012, I actually moved to Vietnam and lived there for 7 years. So during the time that I lived in Vietnam, I was able to learn a lot about the culture. And in preparing to present this presentation for you, I also did some more research and found some new nuggets of information that I'm excited to share with you as well. I work as an interpreter now, a Vietnamese interpreter. So part of my professional development is to also continue to learn about the Vietnamese culture since there's such a variety. Okay, so next, oops, just to begin, what is the first word? Maybe the first word that you think of when I say the word culture. What is that? Can you write it in the chat box for me? For example, some people think of food. They love culture and they love food. Yes, Rhonda, I totally agree with you. Food. How about, okay, so how people live. Beliefs, foods, customs. Yes. Very good. Yes. The way of life. Yeah. Traditions. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. So basically, you're all right. Culture are just shared basic assumptions within a group. So it could be food, music, dress, way of behaving, all of that. So today, we're going to be talking about the Vietnamese culture. And even with the Vietnamese culture, there's macro culture, and then there's subcultures and microcultures. Within the country, there are variations of culture, differing from location to location. And then also culture changes over time, right? Throughout time. So during this presentation, I will share with you what is similar and what may be different, and also how some of these practices change over time. If you have a different opinion or a different experience, then go ahead and enlighten us in the chat box and we can discuss about that, okay? That's the nice thing with having this class here. is that we can learn together and we can share what we know together. So my next question for you then is, what is your motivation in being here today and learning more about the Vietnamese culture? Are you like Vietnamese, born Vietnamese, but raised somewhere else? Or is there another reason? Do you have a Vietnamese friend that you'd like to get to know better? Is it part of your work? For me, like I wanted to elaborate on my reason. Okay, just interest in other culture, curiosity. My cousin is married, Christina. My cousin's married to a Vietnamese woman and lives here. You love food. All right. Yeah, so you've been exposed at least a little bit to the Vietnamese culture. To help communicate with Vietnamese people in my area. Yes, that's a very good reason. Like I'd mentioned, my job as an interpreter is to facilitate communication between the client and the Vietnamese person. And because of cultural barriers or because of cultural differences, there's barrier in communication. So the purpose that you want to communicate with the Vietnamese people better and you want to be here, and that's why you're here. That's wonderful. At least be able to greet other people in the heart of their language. Yes, so xin chào. That's how we say hello. All right, so thank you for being here. Well, let's get to the presentation then, the class then. If you watched my presentation video, my video to invite you to this class, I have, okay, Susan, you have several friends that are Vietnamese. Okay, so maybe even after this class, you can ask them, you know, a little bit about what you've learned or what you hear during this class. So in my presentation video, I had mentioned that about etiquette.
Okay.
I'm sorry, if you're not muted, can you please mute just to show respect for the other classmates who are here, for other participants that are here? Thank you. So Vietnamese etiquette, weddings, funerals, and the Lunar New Year. These are very important in the Vietnamese culture, major celebrations. Even the funeral is a celebration, it is. However, because of time constraints, I will be focusing on etiquette and the Vietnamese wedding today. There will be a part 2 to this class in June, and I'll share with you more about that at the end of this class, that we will focus more on then the traditions that happen during funerals and the Lunar New Year. So as you can see here, you have just the bride in red. Have you ever thought why? Why? What do you expect the bride to wear? But here you see the bride wearing red. Is there a reason for that? This picture here, social etiquette, social and dining etiquette. What does it mean? How does passing things with both hands represent respect? And then these two pictures, the Lunar New Year, why is there a dragon? What does that represent? And also funerals. And you see that they're wearing white, you know, white at a funeral. What do you usually expect? Is probably maybe a different color, right? But here they're wearing white. So that will be discussed in the class in June, but today we will focus on social etiquette and weddings. So first, let's talk about dress. As you see here, the Vietnamese people, what they are wearing here is called an AEIO-U, which means long dress, right? It's a long shirt. It is a dress that's worn with pants. There's a slit from here. And if you see, it's very conservative, and the Vietnamese culture they're very conservative. So now even it's proper to wear clothes that don't expose your shoulder. right? In the Vietnamese culture, the head and the shoulder are sacred, but you don't expose the shoulder. And you also wear things below the knees. Though now with other cultural influences, you see the younger generation maybe not wearing that, maybe exposing a little bit more, but the general belief, the general cultural, what they expect from you is to be modest, and especially if you were to attend important events, to cover your shoulder and below your knees. And here, like the Vietnamese dress, that's what you see here. Okay. Any questions so far? Again, if you have any questions, feel free to make a comment in the chat box. The hat that they wear, it's called a nong la, which means a leaf hat. And it's part of the outfit that attire. Sorry, plane overhead. It's part of the Vietnamese attire. In Vietnam, it's known for rice paddies, people working outside a lot, and these wide brim hats have been worn in the culture ever since then, and it's part of the clothing that they wear. Okay. Dress for males, conservative or Rhonda, you ask dress for males. Okay, yeah, so males, they also wear an AEIO-U. I should have put a picture of the men wearing AEIO-U. Not so much now as they did in the past, but for weddings, if he wanted to, the only difference is maybe the shirt will not be as long. It'll just come, to the knee area, but it's also very similar. And yes, the dress, it's very conservative, and it's just to show respect. Showing your shoulder is exposing, skin, parts of the body, and so that's why you want to, like back in the days, cover the knees, cover the shoulders. The name of the hats, I will type it in the chat box. Thanks for asking, Maite. I will type that in the chat box. It's called nong la, right? Nong meaning hat and la meaning leaf. All right, thank you. Keep those questions coming if you have them. Okay, next is the way we greet people. So the respect is very important in most Asian cultures. In the Asian culture. And so as a little child, before you can even speak, you're taught to show respect to the elders, to the older ones. And so children are taught to say ah, right? That's this first here. And they're told to cross their arms and say ha. In different cultures, maybe there are different ways of bowing and greeting. In the Vietnamese, you slightly bow your head and you say ah. That's before you could speak, say words. When you grow up and you can say words, you will say chào or xin chào. Okay? I will type xin chào in the text box. Xin chào is a more formal way of saying hello. Right, that means to say hello, and even a greater, to show even more respect than that, you will say thưa, and so that's to show great respect to your grandmother, your grandfather. It's not just an uncle or auntie, but someone that deserves even more respect. So those are the three ways you can address, you can say hello, and you would address people actually with using kinship terms, which are terms like uncle, auntie, mom, dad, brother, sister. Everybody we address using kinship terms. So even if it's a guy across the street I've never met before, but he's about the age of my uncle, I will say chào chú, which means hello, uncle. Right? The Vietnamese culture it's based on family, it's based on unity and clan. So there's a strong emphasis on community and that family arrangement. For that reason, these kinship terms are used as pronouns. So if you're saying hello, like how are you? Khỏe không? So how are you? I'll type that in the chat box. Khỏe không? But you will put before it, who are you talking to? So if I say cô khỏe không, right? Say, Auntie, are you well? How are you, Auntie? If it was a male, I will say chú khỏe không. They both mean you, right? How are you? But different kinship terms depending on who you're addressing, depending on gender and age. And so you'll say chào, or you say thưa, and then you'll add the correct pronoun or kinship term when you greet someone. Another interesting culture about when you're greeting someone, especially when you come over, you are invited to someone's house, or you come over to their house, it's always proper to go and find the parents or the grandparents in the house and say hello to them first, or say to acknowledge that they're there and that you're coming to visit. So even if you come to a Vietnamese home and you're there to visit your friend, you will ask, is your mom home? May I say hello to your mom, your grandma? You find the parents in the home, the grandparents, the older ones in the home, and you want to say hello to them, to acknowledge, to let them know that you're there, and to say hello. When you leave, even after you're chatting with your friend for about an hour and you leave, you go and find them again to let them know that you're leaving. Right? It's a way to to show respect in the Vietnamese culture when you're first meeting someone or when you're going to visit with someone. Any questions so far? All right. If no questions, we'll go to the next slide. Again, when you accept items, it's always nice to accept with both hands. It shows appreciation and respect. When you give, same way, with both hands. Doing it with one hand, you'll see it, but it's taken as very casual and even very rushed, right? So both hands when you're passing items and accepting it with both hands, and sometimes even bowing of the head to acknowledge. So this is a picture of a typical market in Vietnam. Anyone can gather things from their yard, what they're planting, growing in the garden, or what they've purchased from somewhere else in a great abundance, and then go sell it on the streets. So bargaining is expected. But when you do bargain and you present a price and they agree to it, you have to buy. So don't bargain just for the sake of bargaining, or don't change your mind. Right? Because sometimes some people will say, okay, I won't accept it. And you walk away, you begin to walk away. And they say, no, they will sell it for you at that price that you want. Please buy it. Please buy at the price that you've agreed. You can't just, oh, change your mind. This is, it's stressful, bargaining, never mind, I don't want it anymore. Please don't do that. That would be very rude, because a lot of these people, they make a living out of selling what it is that they have. So they will try to get the most, right, out of what it is that they have. So if they do agree with the price that you present, it would be expected that you buy it at that price. Again, this goes back to the whole touching the head and the shoulders. The head is considered the most sacred part of the body, and the feet is considered the least. So pointing the feet at something sacred, like the ancestors' altar, very disrespectful. The head, you see here in this picture, the mother rubbing the boy's head. That's fine for an older person to do it for a younger one as a display of affection and compliment, but you will not want to do this to an older person. So not to someone who, as your aunt, uncle, someone of that status, your parents, your grandparents. That is very disrespectful to touch or to rub the head. Okay. And the pointing of the fingers, very normal in some places, right? In Vietnamese, someone points at this at you, they're very upset with you. This is usually used to, parents getting mad at their children, but you don't want to do this. Right? If you want to show, it's usually with an open hand, or even if you want to call someone over, you don't want to do this either. Both hands, you would call them to come over, not like this. And again, that's just associated with the fact that it's very rude, right, to do that. Okay. Oh, that is all then for the social etiquette. Any questions or experiences that you've had with revolving social etiquette? Maybe with you meeting someone and maybe you don't understand why they might do things a certain way, go ahead and put it in the chat, even if it comes to your mind later, because this chat will be saved. And if I'm not able to address it now, for some reason, I will address it in later culture classes, right? So feel free to just share whatever is on your mind. Next would be the dining etiquette, which is a different type of socially accepted behavior in itself. In the Vietnamese culture, the family all eat together, and families in Vietnam, they usually live together. The grandparents, the parents, the children, the great-grandchildren. So dinner time, you could have a large group of people eating together on the same table, sitting on like the same table or the floor, as you see here. This is a smaller family, but so when it's dinner time, dinner's ready, not everyone just runs up and sit down and start eating. You have to wait until the older family members, your grandparents, your parents, when they sit down, then you can sit down. And the older family members sit together, and then younger. So the youngest ones sit together. Right? The kids sit separately or together, sometimes separately, depending on the arrangement of the house. It could be a different table, or if it's at the same table, at a different end of the table. The adults, and then gradually down. So once they sit, then you will know where to sit, depending on where you are in the hierarchy of social status in that family. When to eat. So here in Vietnam, you wait until the older people start eating, then you can eat. And even before you eat, the Vietnamese people will say a phrase like "Xin mời," please eat, right? Usually the majority, and depending on faith, but no prayer really, but you are expected to invite the people to eat before you eat, right? Enjoy your meal. It's kind of like that. in subculture. So xin mời cả nhà ăn. I put that phrase in the chat box. It means I invite the whole house to eat. Or if it's just a few people, I invite dad, I invite mom, I invite younger brother to eat, and then you start eating. Okay. I've heard that the first customer of the day set the tone for the whole day. Yes, that is, very true. Yes. So thank you, Lisa, for that comment. We will talk about that next class about the Lunar New Year and the first day of the Lunar New Year and the first customer that comes into the house, the first customer that comes to the business, and how it sets the tone for the rest of the year. You are very accurate. Yeah. So back to the dining etiquette. After now when people eat, how do you eat? There's a way of eating that's considered acceptable. So what I have here is like, as you see here, you get a small bowl that you put rice in, and then food is shared among the family, right? So you will just pick what it is that you want into your bowl. And as you see here, sometimes as a display of love and generosity, and that they care and they're attentive to your need, they will pick with their chopsticks food and put it in your bowl, right, for you to eat. And they hope that you like it, right? So you just eat it. I think that's one thing that to me, it was kind of different, because we're used to just taking what we want to eat, right? Deciding what we want to eat, but now someone's deciding for you what you should eat. But that's just their way of showing love, and so you just eat, and it's just a little bit, so you only take what you will eat. It's not acceptable behavior to start eating and not finishing. Actually, there is a tall tale, or if you don't finish your food, you will be poor later on in life. So kids are told to finish their food. If they don't finish their food, they're going to grow up poor. Or when you're eating, you don't want to drop anything on the floor. Accidentally drop rice on the floor. The reason is there's a saying, because in the Vietnamese culture, there's superstition of life after death. If you drop your food on the floor, your rice on the floor, when you're dead, you will not have food to eat. So that's another cultural belief, and it dictates what parents teach their kids to get them to finish eating their food and to not drop anything on the floor. So only take what you want. Okay. So when you're eating, okay, this is a very small bowl, right? You don't want to actually drop food on the floor, so you put the bowl close to your mouth. You pick the food that you want, put it in your plate, put it in your bowl. So you don't want to just pick the food and put it in your mouth, right? Put it in your bowl, then from your bowl, you put it to your mouth. Kind of a stopping point there before you put it in your mouth to avoid dropping it on the floor. I noticed they are generous with giving food at the restaurant. Is there a reason for this? Well, they want you to be happy, to be full, and love. I think with many cultures, the Vietnamese culture, if you know the history, it's with war and poverty, food is essential, and it's a way to show that you love and you care for someone's well-being. So even if you have little, you want to give what it is that you have as a way to show that you care. So if they're generous with food with you, it's because they really want you to be happy and to have all the sustenance that you need. So parents, they might not, you know, they say they love you a lot, but if they're cooking for you, making food, sending you food, it's their way of letting you know that they love you and they really care. Yeah. So at restaurants, they want you to come back. So they want you to make sure that you get the food that you need. And let's say, sorry, between mouthful, you have food in your mouth. So what do? You can put it, the chopsticks on your bowl here, set on the table as you're chewing your food. What you don't want to do is just stick the chopsticks in the rice bowl and just having it stand up like this, right? Whoops, sorry, there you go. And the reason is because of the ancestor worship practice that they do. This looks like incense sticks, right? in the little altar there. So superstitious, you don't want to do that. It will upset the spirits, kind of thinking. So what to eat? Again, whatever's presented and whatever they offer you. And don't take anything just to try it and spit it out, right? You know, take what you want, or just take a little bit that you want to try. And make sure you eat all of your food. Again, with table manners, and this is just to summarize it all up again. You want to not start to eat until the older family members or friend, whoever is overeating, starts to eat. You want to invite them to eat before you start eating. Right, so you take chopsticks in your mouth, and you take the chopstick, you pick up food and you put it in someone else's plate. That's what they do. Nowadays, I do notice that some Vietnamese, they will turn their chopsticks around just so to prevent my saliva on your food, right? But some people don't, especially the older generation, they don't see anything wrong with that. But the passing of the food to your friend's bowl is to say, hey, I'm attentive, try this. I want you to try this. And also the Vietnamese culture, they don't want to appear that, you know, they're hoarding all the food. So sometimes they are very, they don't take so much. So you want to invite them to eat, to let them know that it's okay for you to eat more. And they don't take a lot just because they don't want to appear that they're taking other people's food, or because we all share from the same, right, bowl of soup or bowl of meat or bowl of vegetables. So being attentive to how much is there, not taking more so that there's not enough for everyone, right? And if the a person invites you to eat, go ahead and try to finish it, eat it. Okay, any questions with dining etiquette before we move on? Yeah, but that's, you don't think very much about it, right? Because what's considered acceptable to us here, for example, burping at the table, Vietnamese people don't think it's just, well, you can't help it. So it's nothing. Your elbows on the table, not a big deal, right? But not eating before older ones, and like the things that we've discussed so far, those are the important things. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go now to marriage, weddings. Back centuries ago, maybe 50 years ago or more, arranged marriages are very common. Children usually don't have a say in who they marry. Nowadays, right, children do have a say in who they marry, but these traditions that I'm about to share with you still apply. So whether they decide or whether their parents decide, some of these traditions are still kept. So with wedding traditions, it says, in modern times, are they more conservative about sharing from the same plates? No, they still share from the same plate. So if they're more conservative, they just change their chopsticks around, right? Even though they're sharing from the same bowl. But it's because they don't want to waste food. So if, for example, everyone has their own plates like we do here, maybe some get more than what they need and others don't get enough. So because of that arrangement, you only take what you need. And so that whole sitting together with a community, bowls that the family share together, it's still in practice. How do you ask for forgiveness for bad manners if we can't remember? Xin lỗi. So to say sorry, and usually I think if you don't know, they will know why you just don't know, right? It's okay. So xin lỗi is how to say I'm sorry, but it's not too serious if they expect that you don't know, right? I think this is more expectations, especially for a Vietnamese person growing up. You're taught these manners. If you're learning the Vietnamese culture, you observe it of how they're doing things, right? And like I said, there are variations from the north, from the central, from South Vietnam, and how they do things. So see how they're doing it, but don't be shocked if suddenly someone puts food, into your bowl that after, their chopsticks and put it, that's just a way of them showing love. So I think it's more, hopefully this class lets you know that there are different ways of doing things, and if they do it, like we might feel the need, I don't want that. I don't want that. Why'd you give me that? Right? That's, I hope that when I share that with you, you understand why they do that. But if, for example, you don't do that, you don't pass the food to them, they're not going to think that you're not generous and that's why you don't do it. Right? So observe, and if you realize that maybe you did something that's different, or you notice an expression on their face, maybe of discontent, xin lỗi, I'm sorry, and then ask, what did I do? Right? I hope that answers your question. Is it rude to say, no, I don't want that? Yes and no. Because nowadays, like the Vietnamese call it, in the past, you eat what you are given because food is scarce. So children are given food, you eat, you finish your food. You don't have a choice to say, I don't want that, I want the other thing. You might not have another thing to choose from. Nowadays, I think the Vietnamese, now that more foreigners are coming into the country, the Vietnamese people know that you might not be familiar with the food. Right? You might not want the food. They might just, out of habit and seeing that while you're sitting there deciding what is that and if I want to eat that or not, they might feel like, oh, she's being shy, so let me help her. Try it, and if you don't want, set it aside, but don't make it too obvious. You don't have to say no, but if eating it makes you sick, you don't want to eat it either. So it's like when someone gives you a gift and you don't like that gift, how will they feel if you're like, no, I don't like that gift, take it back, right? You just graciously accept it for their kind gesture. And try it, you know, or if you're allergic, explain to them, maybe that's why. But usually the Vietnamese people, they will pick up on nonverbal cues to not keep giving you the same thing if it's obvious that you haven't finished it in your bowl. I hope that answers your question. If not, you can ask me again later. So weddings, here, wedding traditions. Back, like I said, in the days when there are arranged marriages, there are several ceremonies that are done. The wedding is not done in one day. It's usually in a course of the actual wedding ceremony. It can take about a week to prepare and carried out in a few days, 2 or 3 days. But the whole process take a long time. So here I have summarized it into 4 bits: asking permission, receiving the bride, and then having the bride go to the groom's house, and then the wedding reception. So the actual wedding that I said take about 2 or 3 days, it's actually the receiving the bride and then having the bride go to the groom's home. The asking for permission, that happens months or a year before the actual wedding. And then the wedding reception is done at the groom's house or nowadays at restaurants, but it's where everyone, other friends are invited. Whereas the receiving the bride and the bride going to the groom's home is reserved for close family members and friends. And then the asking permission, it's reserved for just the family involved. So let's get more into that here. Here, asking for permission. Back in the days, the parents decide who their children will marry. So they will sometimes send boy likes girl, possibly notice girl, or parent thinks my child would be good with that family. Our family confused together will be a good, strong family. They will have a matchmaker or a third party first go and ask the family what they think. This is to save face. And to save face in case there was rejection. If they agree, then they will get the birth dates when the children were born and see if the years, because they, see if the years match, right? And so they will either ask a fortune teller or the Buddhist monk, what's a good day to have the engagement party? What's a good day to have the wedding? Will they make a good match? Well, their birth year, because in the Vietnamese culture, the years are associated to certain personalities and characteristics. So they want to make sure that they are compatible. So the first is a proposal, and that's the proposal of the idea of the family uniting and the kids getting married. Then a couple months later, they have the engagement. So back 50 years plus ago, when the children don't have a say in who they marry, this is usually, the engagement is usually when the first to meet. Okay. Nowadays, here, as you can see in this picture here, this is, oops, the married couple. Here, they are present for like the proposal of the idea of the marriage. But back in the days, it would just be the parents and maybe the grandparents, and they'll sit together and have tea. At the engagement party and the wedding ceremony, they have their traditions that are very similar, but to different scales. So what you see here, this is the exchange of, or the giving of the gifts. It's done in all three: the giving of the gifts in the engagement, the giving of the gifts in these things called, these are called mam hua, for the, let me just screen to the next screen so you can see here, right? These are done at the engagement party. When you go and at the actual wedding ceremony. So the engagement party is to let people know that that this couple is going to get married. And they will have a sign in front of the house that says, Din home, engaged. And the party is just for the family, right? But the actual wedding, they will have a sign that says, Bu Hui, which lets them know that the husband is coming, the groom is coming to take the bride away. And then at the groom's home, it will have a sign that says Dang home, which means receiving the bride to the husband's home. So in the past, the bride will go live with the husband's family. Nowadays, they've condensed it, the receiving and the bride and the bride's home to sometimes to one place, just to make it simpler. And then that sign then in front of the home will say Tan home, which is the wedding. If you notice here, one of the tradition is to have the gifts, like that's kind of like the dowry. In this picture here, you see here, after the groom goes to the bride's home, then half of the gift is brought back. And here's the line of people involved in the wedding party. And this is the bride and the groom then going to the groom's home. Now they get in cars, rent a car, and go. Back in the days, they would walk. So you see this procession of people, you know, they would walk. And even further back, several centuries back before that, the groom would lead this procession, this line of people, and the bride would sit on a hammock, would be carried along in the back on the hammock. But they don't do that anymore. Then the bride now walks with the groom, and in more developed areas of Vietnam, they just rent a car. What kind of gifts? Things to set up in the home or gifts that are symbolic? Very good question. That's actually the next slide that I would like to talk about. So some of the gifts, okay, mâm quà. So these gifts, it could be wine, tea, roasted pork is a delicacy for a lot of celebrations. And I want to share with you a story about why the betel leaf and the areca nut is always presented at the gift giving as a part of the dowry during the engagement, during the when you go and you pick up the bride. This betel leaf and areca nut is a symbol of love and of loyalty, and it's based on a tragic love story. The link is here. I will send, oops, sorry. I will send you the link in the chat box. There's a link to the story, and then there's also a link to the video that is a 2-minute video that I will show you. That's here. I find the chat box. There you are. All right. Of the story behind the betel leaf and the areca nut and what it represents. In this video, this YouTube video is a 30-minute video, which because of that and time-wise, I'm not able to share with you, but you can watch it later at your own time. I will share you 2 minutes of it at the end. But the story is about a couple who's married. However, the husband has a twin brother. The husband and the twin brother were very close growing up, but since he's gotten married, the relationship changed. There's different variations of the story. In this video, one day the wife couldn't tell the difference between the two brothers, and she so then treated the younger brother, who's not her husband, in thinking that that was her husband, as as a husband. So the husband then found out later, got really upset with the younger brother. The younger brother then ran away because of the misunderstanding that happened between the brothers and the family. And he ran away and he met up with an old man who then couldn't really understand why he was so sad, but the younger brother ended up dying and turning into a limestone. In the Vietnamese culture, yeah, they believe in reincarnation. So then the older brother can't find his brother, his younger brother. He goes out and looks for his younger brother and found this old man who then recognizes him and realizes they're brothers, takes him to the limestone. The older brother, being very sad, then dies and turns into a beetle tree. The wife, who's sad because of what has already happened, has waited for a real long time because both brothers ran away after the misunderstanding, then goes and tries to search for her husband, find this old man again, and she turns into the leaf that then wraps around the beetle tree. So I spent 2 minutes to watch that, and then I will wrap it up and leave time for questions, okay?
Bờ sông tỏa lớn khói xưa, bờ hiên bên tảng đá, và rồi thiên thu gọi tên trở thành thân cây. Ai khóc người thủy chung, bạn luôn với nhau. Giờ đây nguyện trong kiếp sau, tình dài bên nhau trao câu, mở đầu lưng duyên người ơi, đỏ hồng đôi môi đưa vào cuộc. Và khi vô cùng biết chuyện, đã lấy ba thứ lai lẫn với nhau. Thấy người nóng bừng như có hơi men, môi đỏ tươi, sắc mặt hồng hào. Vua cho rằng tình yêu thương của họ thật là nồng nàn thấm rõ. Bèn truyền lệnh cho dân chúng, khi kết nghĩa phu thê phải tìm cho được 3 món trầu, cau và vôi làm lễ vật. Từ đó.
All right. So that is why at all the weddings, the special part of the gifts that's included is the betel leaf and the areca nut, which is another way of saying the betel nut, right? Because it represents the love and loyalty that's between the husband and the wife. And part of the tradition as well is to recognize the ancestors and having their approval in the wedding. So here you have the pouring of the tea. Again, this is done at all three. The pouring of the tea for the ancestors and the pouring of the tea for the parents and the grandparents that are there to show them respect. This is a typical altar, and them letting the ancestors know and wishing for the blessings from the ancestors in their marriage. And then after that, the wedding reception is usually done at the groom's house in the past, after taking the bride to the groom's house. Now, another revenue is rented restaurants. They simplify it and get all the guests are then invited here to make it easier. They still do the traditions, going to the wife's home, the groom's home to pay the respects to the ancestors and to give the gifts. And then the guests then are invited to the wedding reception. Here you have the bride and the groom visiting the different tables to show appreciation for the guests who come, starting with the table with the closest family members and friends, and then down to the friends who are not as close. One thing to keep in mind is regarding the wedding is that if you have recently lost a loved one or if attended a funeral, you have to wait a year before attending any weddings at all. It's usually thought of as bad luck if you've lost a dead loved one or been to a funeral, or if you are, to be at the wedding. So I will stop here for, these are some of the resources that I've done, and for culture. My next culture class to continue is on the 27th. Feel free to register on the AEIO-U language.com if you're interested, and I will stop now for questions.